course content which is BBYCT 133। तो आज हम लोग सब यहाँ पर 3-4 दिनों के लिए आपके साथ मैं BBYCT 133 के अंतर्गत जो ब्लॉक्स हैं 1, 2, 3 और 4 उसकी बातें हम लोग करेंगे। We all know that environment is very, very vital in the present situation, and the surroundings, which is so very essential for our betterment, for sustainable livelihood, for human beings, for animals, for plants, together. Therefore, in block 1 of BBYCT, we are going to read about ecology and ecological factors. The study of ecology has become essential in the modern era. This is because man has caused changes in the various abiotic components such as air, water and land. हम सबको पता है कि हमारे चारों ओर का जो वातावरण है, जो इकोलॉजी का एक अहम हिस्सा है, उसमें दो मुख्य रूप से पार्ट्स हैं जिसके विषय में आप पढ़े भी हैं और आगे पढ़ाया भी जाएगा। एक है बायोटिक कंपोनेंट और दूसरा है एबायोटिक कंपोनेंट। बायोटिक कंपोनेंट के अंतर्गत सारे हमारे जीव और जंतु आते हैं, मुख्य रूप से प्लांट्स, एनिमल्स एंड माइक्रो ऑर्गेनिजम्स एंड ऑफ कोर्स वी ह्यूमन बीइंग्स। और जो एबायोटिक फैक्टर्स हैं उसमें मुख्य रूप से एयर, वाटर और लैंड, जो 3 स्फीयर्स ऑफ लाइफ है, यानी हाइड्रोस्फीयर जल, वाटर, लिथोस्फीयर लैंड और एटमॉस्फेयर एयर आता है। और उसके अंतर्गत टेम्परेचर वेरिएशंस है, लाइट है, प्रेसिपिटेशन है, पीएच है। तो ये सारे जो फैक्टर्स हैं, ये सारे सॉइल के कंपोनेंट्स हैं, न्यूट्रिएंट्स है, ये सब एबायोटिक कंपोनेंट में आता है। एंथ्रोपोजेनिक एक्टिविटीज यानी हम अपने ह्यूमन बीइंग अपने वेरियस एक्टिविटीज के द्वारा वातावरण में बदलाव ला रहे हैं। एक बदलाव नेचुरल होता है जो अपने लय के अनुसार समय से जियोलॉजिकल टाइम फ्रेम में बदलता रहता है, और एक होता है जो हम अपनी गतिविधियों से वातावरण में कुछ बदलाव लाते हैं। तो ये जो चेंजेस हैं, ये जो आकस्मिक नहीं है और हमारे कार्य कलापों के द्वारा हो रहा है, तो दैट इज थ्रेटनिंग और affecting the survival of other organisms. So realizing the significance and the importance of such changes caused by man in the environmental factors, there is a need to have abundant knowledge about the basic concept of ecology. और इसीलिए आज BBYCT 133 के अंतर्गत हम लोग ये कर रहे हैं और यही पढ़ाई हम लोग अभी करेंगे कि किस प्रकार हमारा वातावरण, हमारी इकोलॉजी और उसमें कितने फैक्टर्स हैं, इस ब्लॉक में हम लोग पढ़ेंगे। तो ये जो ब्लॉक है इसके 4 यूनिट्स हैं जो हमें इंफॉर्मेशन देगा बेसिक कॉन्सेप्ट्स ऑफ इकोलॉजी का, वेरियस फैक्टर्स का, और किस प्रकार जो प्लांट्स हैं वो एडेप्ट करेंगे ग्रोइंग इन द वाटर एंड लैंड हैबिटेट। तो कैसे पौधों में जल में रहने के लिए और लिथोस्फीयर यानी लैंड या सॉइल में रहने के लिए जो एडेप्टेशंस है, दैट वी आर गोइंग टू स्टडी। The first unit will explain in brief the term ecology and provide an introduction about basic concepts such as population, community, ecosystem and biosphere. तो हमें बहुत जरूरी है कि इकोलॉजी जो हमारे पूरे चारों तरफ का एनवायरनमेंट है जिसमें कंटिन्यूअस इंटरैक्शन हो रहा है एबायोटिक और बायोटिक के बीच में, उसमें क्या है पॉपुलेशन का कॉन्सेप्ट, पॉपुलेशन किस प्रकार कम्युनिटी बनाते हैं, कम्युनिटी कई कम्युनिटी मिलकर इकोसिस्टम में रहते हैं, जहां अगर ग्लोबली हम इसको समझें तो वो एक बायोस्फीयर कहलाता है। तो सम ऑफ द हिस्टोरिकल पर्सपेक्टिव्स हैव आल्सो बीन इंक्लूडेड आपके इस कोर्स कंटेंट में, जिससे आपको पता चले कि कौन हिस्टोरिकली किस साइंटिस्ट ने इस क्षेत्र में काम किया, और हम उन्हें ड्यू दें कि उनकी खोज, उनकी सोच और उनके साइंटिफिक पर्सुइट्स के कारण आज जो हमारे पास कॉन्सेप्ट्स हैं इकोलॉजी का, और हम अपने वातावरण को बेटर बना सकते हैं, उसके इम्पोर्टेंट घटक हैं हम, हमारे अपने कार्यों के द्वारा हम कैसे इसमें एक अच्छा बदलाव ला सकते हैं। क्योंकि आप जानते हैं कि इस साल जो वर्ल्ड एनवायरनमेंट डे बना 5 जून को, तो उस दिन हम लोगों ने देखा कि रेस्टोरेशन ऑफ इकोसिस्टम पर जोर दिया गया है। और इस बार इसकी सेलिब्रेशंस हमारे पड़ोसी राज्य पाकिस्तान को मिला है, और इसमें इसके सेलिब्रेशंस के पीछे, ये वर्ल्ड एनवायरनमेंट डे मनाने के पीछे भी उद्देश्य है कि हर साल हम अपने आप को रिमाइंड करें कि हमारा वातावरण हमारे लिए कितना जरूरी है। केवल उस दिन ही नहीं, बल्कि हर वक्त हम याद करें। और आप इस सब्जेक्ट को पढ़ रहे हैं, आपके ज्ञान के कारण आप इसे एप्लीकेटरी एस्पेक्ट्स में अपने वातावरण में लागू कर सकते हैं, आसपास में अवेयरनेस कर सकते हैं, और इस तरह के जो बॉडीज हैं जो ये काम करते हैं, उसमें आप अपना कंट्रीब्यूशन भी दे सकते हैं नॉलेज वाइज, और साथ में एक बदलाव का अहम हिस्सा बन सकते हैं। तो हमारा पहला हिस्सा हो गया इकोलॉजी। The first unit will describe ecology and provide an introduction about the basic concepts such as population, community, ecosystem and biosphere. फिर हमारा second and third unit will describe in detail important abiotic components, जैसे अभी मैंने बताया water, soil, light, temperature. तो इसकी details आप पढ़ेंगे. Their composition and properties have been listed in detail in your units. You can go through it. If you have queries, you can post it, which will be dealt. The questions which you pose may be put in the chat box, and that will be communicated to me. And as we progress in the lectures, those queries will be sorted out. So these ecological factors which we are going to study in the second and the third unit will help us understand how the survival, growth, and development of various living components, that includes essentially the plants and animals, how they are affected, the physical factors like light, the soil, and water are also very necessary for the survival of plants, as well as, of course, the life forms that are existing in the ecosystem. While temperature and light would regulate their growth, development, and distribution in various areas of the earth, you can understand that there is a continuous interaction going on between these ecological factors and, of course, the living biotic component which is present in the ecosystem. Then we have our fourth unit, which will provide information about various adaptations that will support the survival of vegetation in the dry areas, which we call xeric conditions. And we have many xerophytes, plants that have adapted in the xeric conditions, relatively where moisture is less, conditions are harsher and drier, or in the water bodies where there is excess of water or moisture, and we say they are the hydrophytes. So we will appreciate what are xerophytes and what are hydrophytes. The plants growing in dry land and water habitats will have some adaptations to survive in this situation. And the vegetation growing in these areas will have characteristic features which would not be seen commonly in other land plants, which we say are mesophytes, or in general, the other plants that are frequently seen around us. These adaptations can be on the morphological forms, that is outside the body, which you can see with your naked eyes, or they can be anatomical changes where you would need an aid like microscope and some sections to appreciate what has happened to the internal tissues of these organisms. So the main objectives would be of studying this block, which is your first block, ecology and ecological factors. It is to define and explain the term environment and ecology. Then you would describe the various factors in the environment, such as soil, water, light, and temperature. Then you would describe in detail various properties of these physical factors and describe adaptations in the plants which are growing in water and dry habitats. So as we introduce the topic of this unit, which is Introduction to Plant Ecology, if you see your course material that has been provided to you, so your first block is ecology and ecological factors, and the first unit is Introduction to Plant Ecology. So as we understand and introduce this topic, we appreciate that organisms do not live in isolation and all organisms are linked to their surroundings. हम इस इकोसिस्टम में अगर आप देखें तो एक अलग अपनी आइडेंटिटी अलग बिना किसी इंटरैक्शन के नहीं रख पाएंगे. हम आइसोलेशन में नहीं जी पाएंगे. हम कंटिन्यूअसली एक दूसरे से इंटरैक्ट करते हैं और साथ में वातावरण से भी इंटरैक्ट करते हैं. And the survival of an organism does depend upon its surrounding. और कोई भी जीव अपने वातावरण से तालमेल बैठाकर वहां पर रहता है. अगर उसकी तालमेल नहीं बैठती है तो उस पर एडवर्स इफेक्ट होता है और वातावरण के इस एडवर्स प्रभाव से उसके सर्वाइवल पर भी असर पड़ता है. So these surroundings of an organism constitute the environment, and any change in the surrounding would affect the growth and survival of the living organisms to quite an extent. और वो दिखेगा, significant होगा. The nutrient and energy gets distributed amongst various living components present in a particular environment. जो हमारा एनर्जी का रिक्वायरमेंट है, हम सब जानते हैं कि लाइट, solar energy through the sunlight is the driving force of all ecosystems. And the plants, which are the producers, would trap this, and ultimately the primary consumers, the secondary consumers, and the tertiary consumers would be using this nutrient, which is a product of the photosynthetic processes of the producers. So we can say, as we appreciate the first unit of block 1, which is Introduction to Plant Ecology, we can define ecology as the study of the relationship of organisms, that can be plants, animals, microorganisms, with their surrounding, which is termed the environment. And the ecological studies would deal with the relationships of organisms with their environment. When you are being taught this unit, you are expected that you can define the terms ecology, and you can define its components like what is environment, the population, the community, the ecosystem, and the ecosphere. You should also be able, after reading this unit, your entire focus should only be not only to understand what is ecology, but also to understand the subdivisions of ecology. On the broader terms, we understood that ecology is the study of relationship of the organism with its surrounding environment. And it was Hans Reiter who gave the concept of ecology in 1868. The term ecology is actually derived from two words, oikos, meaning home, and logos, meaning study. And the term was coined in 1869 by German biologist Ernst Haeckel. So you must remember that the term ecology was given by Ernst Haeckel. Literally, it means study of home. So, according to him, ecology is a branch of science that would deal with the study of interrelationships between living organisms and their surrounding environment. And scientifically, ecology can be defined as the study of interrelationships of organisms with their surroundings. Some other definitions have also been given by different scientists, like in 1954, Woodbury defined ecology as science that investigates organism in relation to their environment. Another important scientist is E.P. Odum, 1969, who defined ecology as the study of structure and function of nature. So the structure is there and a function is also there. So, in fact, once you appreciate the term ecology, the subdivisions of ecology, you should also be able to differentiate between the natural and the man-made environment. As I have already mentioned, as I introduced the topic, that there are certain situations which are naturally existing. For example, a natural forest, a natural grassland. That could be a tropical forest, an equatorial forest, a deciduous forest, but these are existing in nature. But something could be artificial environment. You can create a agricultural system which is an artificial system. So describe not only the natural but the man-made environment. One must be able to describe it. Then one must be able to talk of what are the components of this ecosystem. Then what are the characteristics of the community, and what are the recent developments in the field of ecology, as well as interrelationship between ecology and other disciplines of biology. Because it is an interdisciplinary branch, you'll be knowing that ecology is just not for botany, it is also for zoology, it is also for microbiologists, it is also for a geography person, it is also for a geologist. So, a separate branch of environmental science is existing, and a biotechnologist would also be concerned with it. In fact, a biochemist, a biophysicist would also be somewhat contributing. So, in fact, it is an interdisciplinary branch where you're studying plant, animal, microbes, you're using the various phenomenons and talking about biochemical changes, you're using instruments to study it and analyze the ecosystem as such. You're talking of the betterment, manipulations of the environment. So, all this makes it an interdisciplinary branch. So, as we appreciate the history of ecology, we can say that ever since man occupied this planet, there is a close linkage with its surrounding and the human life. In fact, if you can appreciate that the early man obtained all his basic needs, food, clothing, and shelter. So we say roti, kapda, or makan from the surrounding. Way back in 370 to 250 BC, the Greek scholar Theophrastus was the first person to introduce a scientific and an ecological approach to the world. He described the relationship between organism and the environment in scientific terms. And then in the 18th century, European naturalist French Georges Buffon 1707 to 1788 introduced the concept of ecology by describing the relationship of animals to their environment in his book of natural history. Many plant geographers, such as Carl Ludwig Waldenau, 1765 to 1812, pointed the role of environment in the development of vegetation. And it was Carl Linnaeus, a Swedish naturalist, in 1707 to 1778, who laid the grounds of modern ecology around 250 years ago. He studied all kinds of organisms, plants, animals, etc., as well as the type of minerals and soils, and he also developed the binomial system of nomenclature. इसके हिसाब से हर चीज के दो नाम होते हैं, एक जीनस और एक स्पीशीज. आप पढ़ चुके हैं ये बात, और इसकी क्रेडिट भी कार्ल लिनेयस को जाती है. और द जर्मन एक्सप्लोरर Alexander von Humboldt, 1769 to 1859, studied relationships of vegetation and environment during his travels to various parts of the world. He compiled in his book Voyage aux Regions Equinoxiales. He described vegetation zones based on latitude and altitude. He correlated vegetation with environmental characteristic, और उन्होंने कॉइन किया टर्म प्लांट एसोसिएशन. Then it was Charles Darwin, all of us are familiar with his name, 1809 to 1882, who gave the theory of natural selection in his book Origin of Species. He compared the similarities and dissimilarities between species found in different regions. He attributed differences in the species to geological barriers. The theory was based on the concept of competition between species. Then another important person is Herbert Spencer, 1820 to 1903, who is considered as the founder of social ecology, and he gave the concept of survival of the fittest. Most of the studies carried out in the 19th century focused on animal behavior, and if you can see your course material, if you can go through pages 9, 10, 11, etc., 9 to 11, essentially there is a list of ecologists and their contribution to modern ecology. So there is a column given, the names are on the left side, the year, and their contribution to the field of ecology. Some of the important ones are Thomas Robert Malthus, 1766 to 1834, who gave the concept of population. And then Schimper, 1856 to 1901, who explained the regional flora in a book called Plant Geography. And it was Carl Moebius, 1877, who coined the term biocenosis, meaning living community. And further, persons like Warming emphasized the role of abiotic factors. And it was Eugenius Warming, 1841 to 1924, who emphasized the role of abiotic factors and introduced the term adaptation to explain the behavior of species under a set of environmental conditions. He is the founder of ecological plant geography. So Warming is another important person. And then Tansley, who gave the term ecosystem. तो अभी आपने देखा ecology और ecosystem. Ecosystem would mean the living organism and their physical environment into one system. He is the founder of British Ecological Society. Then Clemens, Hutchinson, Ronquier, they are some of the other important persons. In fact, Hutchinson is also called as father of modern ecology, 1903 to 1991. He gave the concept of limnology, entomology, mathematical theory of population dynamics, and he also introduced the concept of niche, which is the functional location of any organism, yeah, functional habitat. Habitat just gives where you can see a particular organism. But the concept of niche also introduces its function there. So there are many other theories to it, many other explanations. So as we move on, we are going to understand it. And Ronquier, in 1934, gave the concept of life forms in plants. Further, it was Eugene Odum, 1913 to 2002, who defined ecology as the science of ecosystems. And his books, Fundamentals of Ecology and Basic Ecology, are very popular, giving us a very good insight into the concept of ecology and ecosystem. Further, working on cycling of nutrients and waters was F.H. Borman and J.S. Olson. And then it was Began and Mortimer in 1981 who gave an update on population ecology. In 1983, B. Bolin and R. B. Cook edited a volume on the major biogeochemical cycles and their interactions. If we talk, this was on the international scale. But if we talk in the Indian scenario, the ancient and the classical epics and holy books, such as Ramayana, Mahabharata, the Vedas, Samhitas, Brahmanas, Upanishads, provide a mention of basic ecological concepts. Even the Charak Samhita and Sushruta Samhita, the ancient Indian texts on medicine and surgery, mention the roles of plants in treating human ailments. So you can understand that our history is very rich. And historically, we Indians have a very rich past, which we must be all very proud of. So the international contributors did contribute, but our ancient epics also highlight that people during the ancient times had a good understanding of plant and animal ecology. The basic concepts of ecology in India began with the study of forest vegetation by forest officers. And the first comprehensive account was given by Professor Dajon from University of Allahabad. He discussed the role of environment in succession of communities, and synecological studies were carried out on grassland in forest communities in India. Professor R. Mishra, 1944 to 1945, 44-45, around that period, he studied ecology of aquatic plants and has been referred as father of Indian ecology. He gave methods of soil analysis and established the Society for Tropical Ecology in 1958 and School of Ecology at Banaras Hindu University in 1960. As the studies advanced, the ecological concepts were linked to other disciplines of biology and science. With passage of time, ecological researches became more applied to human welfare. The studies on the effect of changes in the environmental conditions, such as pollution, and on various types of vegetation and other components were initiated. And then came bodies and agencies like MAB, Man and Biosphere Program of UNESCO, and IUCN, that is International Union for Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources, Switzerland, that focused their work on biological basis of productivity and human welfare. They were also formed. So up to now, we did appreciate what is ecology in the unit 1 of block 1. We appreciated the contributions made by many scientists in this field. And as mentioned, that as we move, we will understand that there are various divisions of this ecology. So the division is basically made on the basis of study of individual organism. Either we are studying a particular organism individually or we are studying the entire group. So we can say auticology, where we are studying individual species in relation to the environment. That would include its geographical distribution, taxonomic position, morphological characters, reproduction, life cycle, and behavior of species with reference to the ecological factors or environment. Or we can say synecology, which is the study of a population or community in relation to their environment. It would comprise of community and ecosystem ecology. The composition and behavior of communities and their relation to the environments are studied, and it can again be classified depending upon what kind of habitat we are talking about. If it is water, then we say it is aquatic ecology. That would include freshwater, marine, estuarine habitat, etc. Or we can say it can be, if it is on the land or the soil, we can say it is terrestrial ecology, which would include forest, grassland, cropland, and deserts. If we talk of subdivisions, we can further say on the basis of the aspect of ecological study, it may include the organism ecology, the behavioral ecology, the population ecology, the community ecology, the ecosystem ecology, the taxonomic ecology, the ecophysiology, chemical ecology, paleoecology, ecological energetics or production ecology. One line of each for you to help understand. Suppose we are talking of a relationship of the living organism, which can be plant or animal, to the biotic and abiotic factors, then it becomes an organism. If you're talking of the behavior of that living organism in relation to the changing environmental conditions, then we would say it is a behavioral ecology. If we talk of the study of structure and dynamics, that is size, density, dispersion, demographics of the population in relation to the environment, then it would be population ecology. And the word, in fact, demography, it's the study of the population. If we deal with the structure and organization of the entire community, biological community, with respect to the environmental interactions, it would be community ecology. And then we can say what is the structure, biodiversity, the distribution, the abundance of a particular species that is comprising the population and the various population interactions that is going on in the community. There can be competition, parasitism, mutualism, predation, etc. So all this would come under community ecology. If we say the study of living organisms, that can be plant, animal, and microbes, along with the non-living components of their environment, that is the water, air, and soil, three major spheres. And we are talking about the energy flow and the nutrient flow or the nutritional aspects of this, then it would come under ecosystem ecology. If we study the different taxonomic groups of the living organism in relation to their environment, then it would be taxonomic ecology, where we would study mammalian ecology, insect ecology, human ecology, microbial ecology, etc. Also, if we are studying the changes in the physiological procedures, your functions such as nutrition and metabolism in living organisms in response to the environmental factors, then we say it is physiological ecology or ecophysiology. It could be chemical ecology if we study the adaptations of animals or insects with respect to production of chemical substances. Paleoecology would mean the study of organism and their environment in the geological past. And if we talk about cytoecology, it would deal with the study of cytological details of the species in relation to environmental conditions. The production ecology would be the study of energy conversions and flow through different organisms in relation to space and time. Ethology is the study of animal behavior in different organisms, in different environments. The system ecology would mean the analysis of structure and function of an ecosystem using applied mathematics or statistics. And habitat ecology would mean study of living organisms in different habitats. So I'm sure, dear students, you can appreciate that there are many subdivisions to the study of ecology based on different criteria. Besides this, there are some other branches of ecology, such as conservation ecology, where we'll be talking about conservation of the various living organisms that can be plants or animals. We can talk of space ecology, radiation ecology, production ecology, etc. So in an ecological system, various level of biological organization, which we call hierarchy, can be seen. These range from individual organisms to populations to communities, ecosystem, and then the biome. So the levels of organization connected with ecological groupings can be termed as ecological hierarchy. So now we are appreciating what is ecological hierarchy, where I just mentioned that the levels of organization connected with the ecological groupings, where an individual organism is the basic and distinct unit of this hierarchy. The individuals would carry out all life processes and exchange materials with the surroundings. A population would be a group of individuals of the same species living together in a common area at a particular time. A community would be the assembly of populations of different organisms in a particular environment. And the ecosystem would be the association of living as well as the non-living components that are present in a particular environment of an area. A biome can be said as the group of terrestrial ecosystem which is present at the regional or subcontinental level. And we can say the biosphere is that part of the earth where life is present. The three major spheres of this biospheres are air, atmosphere, land, lithosphere, and water, which is the hydrosphere. So we can say that ecology can be studied at various levels. You can have a global ecology, you can have an ecosystem ecology, you can have community ecology, population ecology, and species ecology. Essentially, if we say it is ecosystem ecology, we would talk of the production and we talk of energetics. If we have the community ecology, we would also have some levels like taxonomic ecology and the habitat ecology. And if we say it is the species ecology, we can say cytoecology, behavioral ecology, physiological ecology. As far as the various levels of hierarchy are concerned, we begin at the base with individual of a species that make the population, further comprising of a part of a community would be many such populations. Ultimately, ecosystem will have the community and then the biome. And if we talk of this as a part where life can be present on the earth, then we say it is the biosphere. So after reading this unit, you must be able to differentiate between the individual study or the organism study, that is the ecology or synecology. You must also appreciate that there can be, on the basis of habitat, the aquatic and terrestrial ecology, and there can be study of ecology at various levels of hierarchy, where you can talk of community and ecosystem. The other important thing in this unit would be the relationship of ecology with other disciplines of biology. Because, as I already said, ecology is an integrated science, and the interactions take place within an ecological system. It is complex and involves various kinds of physical, chemical, and biological processes. So, the dependence of ecology on other branches of science makes it an interdisciplinary science. All the living organisms, that is, plants, animals, and microbes, form an important component of the ecological study. The survival, distribution, and abundance of these organisms are influenced by changes in the physical factors such as temperature, light, rainfall, and altitude. Even the branches of science such as geology, hydrology, meteorology influence the survival and distribution of the biotic components to the greater extent. Plus, we have the branches of biology such as zoology, botany, microbiology. All of these are integrated into ecology so that the structural and biochemical processes involved in the adaptation of organisms to the changing environmental conditions can be studied. So interactions between living organisms is studied using various aspects. You can talk of the morphology, physiology, genetics, taxonomy, molecular biology, developmental biology, bacteriology, entomology, etc. And one must be very clear in mind that ecology is linked closely with other divisions of biology as well as with other sciences and other subjects. Each organism can be studied by aspects such as morphology, genetics, evolution, physiology, developmental biology, etc. So there is a clear indication that ecology is an integrated science. If we understand the basics of ecology, then we would say that each living organism depends on its surrounding for survival and sustenance. The environment provides food, energy, water, oxygen, shelter, and other necessities to living organisms. The total of all the surrounding, that is this air, water, land, vegetation, that would influence the existence of living beings is referred to as environment. An environment can be broadly classified into two types, natural and man-made. Natural would be that is created by nature. For example, the lakes, the forests, the mountains, etc. And man-made, that is created or generated by altering the natural conditions. It could be townships, cities, it could be the cultivated agricultural fields. So if we understand that environment can be natural or man-made, then the next thing comes is, what are the two main important components of this environment? So we say it is the living or the biotic, the non-living or the abiotic. So biotic would consist of all the living components that are referred to as biotic components, essentially consisting of the plant, the animals, and the microorganisms. If the abiotic factors are considered, then it would be all the non-living factors such as air, soil, water, the physical conditions such as light and temperature, etc. Again, we can say that the environment can be external or the internal. If we talk of the internal environment of an organism, it will be in vivo, inside the body. The body surface would act as an exchange barrier between the external and the internal environment in any single-celled organism. An exchange would be carried out directly with the external environment. However, if it is a complex system, it would involve a more complex process. Normally, we say internal environment is more stable as compared to the external environment, because for the internal environment, there is a system of maintenance, self maintenance, which helps it to regulate its various metabolic processes. So, after knowing all this, you should be able to describe the various components that are present in the environment. Now, as we introduce the term ecology for Unit 1, we continue with our discussions and we say, what is biosphere? Because in the hierarchy, I mentioned that it is the individual which makes up a particular species comprising of leading to a formation of a population, then to a community, then to an ecosystem, and on in the earth, if we talk of the global ecosystem, it is the biosphere. So I repeat that the part or the zone or the layer of earth where life exists is referred to as biosphere. It is also called ecosphere. The global ecological system is composed of all living beings and elements of lithosphere, hydrosphere, and atmosphere, where lithosphere means the soil, the rock, the hydrosphere is the water element, and atmosphere is the air element. It is a closed, self-regulating system and is regarded as a sum of all ecosystems. So, in fact, hydrosphere constitutes around 70% of the Earth's surface, where there are fresh water and the marine. In lithosphere, it is the solid component or the hard surface of Earth consisting of three layers: the crust, the mantle, and the core. The uppermost part consists of the weathered rocks, minerals, and organic matter and is known as soil, which is so very important. And the atmosphere is the mixture of gases, water vapor, and particulate matter. The atmosphere is divided into different zones. The nearest to the Earth is troposphere. Then you have the stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere, magnetosphere, depending upon the temperature gradients. The weather phenomenon all take place in troposphere, and the ozone protective layer is in the stratosphere. So we can say that ecosystem, which is the ecological unit consisting of living and non-living, show a continuous interaction and maintain the equilibrium with the environment. And we also appreciated that it was Stanley in 1935 who proposed the term ecosystem. So if we appreciate what are the abiotic factors, then essentially we can classify it under three broad categories of climatic factors like light, temperature, wind, humidity, etc. Edaphic factors, which are the soil, its structure and properties, the soil profile, organic matter, minerals, soil organisms, and the physical factors, the third one, which includes air and water. If we say the biotic components, we have the producers, which are normally the autotrophs, that is, they can convert energy from the sun into food. Then these are the photosynthetic organisms. And in the terrestrial ecosystem, these producers are the green plants. In aquatic ecosystems, these are referred to as phytoplanktons. They can be rooted plants, which are macrophytes. Some of the producers can also be chemoautotrophic, where they carry out the chemical conversion of oxidation and reduction, and then they synthesize the food. essentially the microorganisms. But since we are talking about plant ecology, so we would stick to the higher green plants. Then we have the consumers, which are the heterotrophic. That is, they cannot auto-produce. Auto means self. They cannot, trophy means nutritional level. They cannot produce their own food. So they consume. The first category is the herbivore, which take their food directly from the producers, and they are the primary consumers. And those that eat these herbivores would be the secondary consumers. And then we have the quaternary or the tertiary ones, which would feed on the secondary consumers. There is another group which is very important, and these are the decomposers. These decomposers include microorganisms essentially like bacteria and fungi. They are referred to as saprotrophs or reducers, scavengers, detrivores, decomposers, etc. They break down the organic matter into inorganic via various digestive enzymes that are secreted by these microorganisms. So in any ecosystem, the various components would interact with each other. The biotic component would depend on the abiotic components for their survival. And the abiotic components such as soil gets enriched by the organic matter added after death and decay by the saprotrophs. So you can understand that there is a very close interaction going on. If we talk of the functional level of an organism, of an ecosystem, the primary producers would harvest the energy from the sun. This is then transferred to the primary consumers, later to the secondary and the tertiary consumers. So there is a continuous flow of energy. Broadly, we can talk of the ecosystem again on the basis of whether it is natural or it is artificial. And it can also be classified as the micro ecosystem, where we talk of small ecosystems, macro ecosystems, where we have big ecosystems. Small ecosystems could be, say, a drop of water with microorganisms around it. So, after reading it, we should understand what is the biotic and the abiotic components and how there is a existence of various levels of producers and consumers in an ecosystem. If we talk of population, we say it is a group of individuals of the same species which is present within a species, which is present within a specific area at a particular time. So it can also be defined as a group of similar individuals of the same species that is capable of interbreeding amongst themselves. Growth, survival, and movement are regulated by various factors. So population of the same species that interbreed are referred as metapopulations. And the characteristics of populations are represented by either a numerical attributes or the structural attributes. If we talk of the numerical attributes of a population, then this would be parameters such as natality, that is the birth rate, mortality, which is the death rate, and density. Density would mean the number of individuals of a population present per unit area. The birth rate or the natality of that population, which is a numerical attribute, would mean the rate at which number of individuals are added to a population by birth over the specified time period. And mortality, which is again a numerical attribute, I repeat, is the rate at which individuals are lost from the population by the death. If we say the dispersal, the rate at which individuals move or migrate from that specified area. If we talk of distribution of the population, which is a numerical attribute of the population, it is the total area of occurrence of a particular population. And abundance would mean the number of individuals within a particular population. Now, if we talk of the structural attributes of a population, this would include parameters such as age, the distribution, and the dispersion. So essentially, when we say numerical attributes, it would mean the density, birth rate, mortality. And if we talk of the structural attributes, it would be age, distribution, and dispersion. So if we now understand that populations comprise a community, as we have already mentioned, then community would represent the population of species living and interacting in an area at a particular time. When several populations share a common habitat, resource, and interact among themselves, they develop into a community. Community is therefore an assemblage of population of two or more species occupying the same geographical area at a particular time. All the living organisms, be it plants, animals, or microbes, share a common habitat and interact amongst themselves. The organisms of a community usually exhibit trophic relationships, that is, food or nutritional or feeding amongst themselves. And the communities can differ in terms of the type and number of species that they contain. This is because environmental conditions influence the composition of a community to a great extent. For example, if we say it is an Arctic zone, very few species are present. While if we say it is a tropical rainforest, there will be a large variety existing. So each community exhibits a number of characteristics such as diversity, density, dominance, composition, and stratification. And ecotone, the term ecotone is used to describe this transitional zone between two communities. So in nature, if you go in any ecosystem, there can be many communities and there can be a transition zone between the two communities, which is called as the ecotone. So community ecology or synecology would include the study of the interactions between species and communities on spatial and temporal scales. That is, in terms of the area or the time period. And the parameters such as its distribution, the structure, the abundance, the interaction are all considered. So if you want to study a community, you would also study what is this richness of species present there, what is the productivity, how a community has developed through the process of succession. And what you are studying now is the climax community, which is in harmony with the present environmental conditions. However, as the changes would be there, the community would show change and there would be a succession. So if we talk of a structure of a community, the number of species and size of population would vary. The community can be a small one having a single species or a large one comprising of many species. And the structure of the community would be the result of many interacting factors, both biotic and abiotic. And it will be influenced by many factors, including abiotic factors. The organization of a biological community with respect to ecological interaction is therefore referred to as the structure of the community. And it can be described by the richness of the species and the diversity. So if you describe what is the structure, essentially, we will say that the species richness would mean the number of different species that is present in a community. And species richness is generally higher in case of tropical latitudes, but decreases significantly as we move towards the pole. Dominance in each community, where few species are present in greater numbers, and therefore these are called as the dominant species. Why is that particular species dominant? Because it is in harmony with the environmental conditions. So diversity would be the number of species and their occurrence or abundance. It is also related to the stability of the community. A community with high species diversity are more stable. This is because, why? Because the many alternate pathways are available to enable the individuals to obtain energy and nutrients. In a community, there will be energy flow and cycling of matters. Energy flow will be via a feeding relationship, as I have already mentioned, that the solar energy, which is the driving force of nearly all the ecosystems, would be trapped by the primary producers, which are normally the green plants, and then the consumers, consisting of herbivores and primary, secondary, and tertiary carnivores, would be eating it. So there will be a unidirectional flow of energy, and the food chains would be connected to each other to form a food web. So functioning of an organism in an ecosystem would be termed as its ecological niche. So every organism will have its habitat, whereas it will also have a functional role there, and then we call it as ecological niche. You must appreciate that since the environment is changing, the community dynamics can also change with time, because it is a dynamic aspect where a series of changes will result in some changes in the community itself. And as I mentioned, the communities at various stages of development will be called as the seral communities, and the community would change gradually. The final stage would be when what you see now of any community would be the equilibrium of that community in a dynamic fashion with the environmental changes. And this process of change in community and their environment at a place in course of time would be called as ecological succession. So I repeat that succession would take place in a particular area over geological time period, where one after the other communities would keep changing due to the changes in the environmental parameters, and these communities would be called seral communities till the climax community is in harmony and in a dynamic relationship with the existing environment and will flourish. So some species that have strong impact on community structure and play a vital role in maintaining the balance of the community would be called a keystone species. A foundation species would play a unique and essential role in a community as it supports the other organism. So, for an example, if we have large kelps which are present in sea and they are giant algae, so the foundation species in this kelp forest in the sea would be the kelps or the brown algae. Similarly, the corals of a coral reef would be the foundation species there. Further, a species that has vast effect on the community structure will be called as a keystone species. So a foundation species would be a unique and essential role in a community, and a species that has vast effect on the community structure would be a keystone species. Keystone species belongs to higher trophic level and tends to modify their environment. So this shows that there are interactions in a community, which is another characteristic feature of any community. There can be some positive interactions, negative interactions, and some interactions which affect one and the other is unaffected. So interactions would essentially be important for the survival, the growth, the reproduction, and continuance of the species. Interactions can be intraspecific when it is between the same species, or interspecific when it is between different species. Intraspecific, that is within the species, would include colonization, aggregation, etc. While interspecific would be neutralism, prey and predator relationship, competition, etc. Some beneficial ones would be like mutualism, where both the partners are benefited. Then it could be commensalism, when one is benefited, the other is not affected. So species present within a community can compete with each other for the resources. And then it is competition. Competition can also be two types. It can be interspecific and intra. Inter means between individuals of different species, and intra-specific would be competition between individuals of the same species. In predation, one would kill the other. In mutualism, both the partners are benefited. In commensalism, one organism benefits while the other is unharmed. Parasitism, where one lives inside the body of the host and one is harmed. So thus we see that depending upon the conditions of the existence, plants can be hydrophytic, mesophytic, xerophytic. Hydrophytic, living in water. Mesophytic, living in moist soil habitat. Xerophytic, living in dry habitats. Heliophytic, abundance of sunlight. Skyophytic, living in shade. So depending upon the location, habitat of their growth, they have been designated as desert community, mountain community, estuarine community, etc. So we can understand that in this, you have, as we introduce the topic, the introduction to plant ecology, we have, apart from the terms of ecosystem, ecology, subdivisions of ecology, we have understood what is community, what are interactions, etc. We just, in the introduction part, introduced terms like ecological factors. And we said two important factors are soil and water. So if we talk of the soil and water, then we say it is the terrestrial or the lithosphere, and water, we say it is the hydrosphere. So, in fact, we have appreciated up till now that Ecology, I repeat, is the study of relationship of living organisms and their environment. It is interconnected with other disciplines of biology. It has two main subdivisions, ecology, where study of individuals, or we have synecology, where we are studying the total interacting population of different species. We also appreciated that the environment or surroundings are composed of various biotic, which is the living world, and the non-living factors, which are the biotic, abiotic. And this interaction of abiotic and biotic influences the overall features of the growing organisms inside the biotic component. We also understood in this unit that the part of Earth where life exists is referred to as biosphere, and population is the group of individuals of the same species that is capable of interbreeding. The population growth is characterized by birth rate, natality, death rate, mortality, density, abundance, and dispersal. And we also understood that ecosystem is the interaction of the non-living and the living, which can be natural or man-made. And at the community level, it is the assemblage of several populations of different species that are present in a particular area. Community attributes consist of dominance, diversity, interactions, and trophic structure. We also understood that there is food chain, food web, and flow of energy, which is unidirectional from the producers to the consumers. We also appreciated that a community develops through the serial stages into a climax community. And in fact, you should appreciate the concepts of environment and the ecosystem by also understanding that there are certain species which are foundation species and certain species which are the keystone species. So a species that would play an essential role in a community as it supports the other organism would be the foundation species, and a keystone species would have a vast effect on community structure relative to their biomass or abundance. If we talk of interactions of a community, then the terms like prey, predation, parasitism, commensalism, where one organism benefits while the other is neither benefited nor harmed, and emensalism, where a type of interaction in which product of one organism has a negative effect on the other should be understood clearly. You also should know that there are producers and consumers. And now we come to what are known as the important ecological factors. When you study this unit, so which is a part of the abiotic factor, then one should understand what is soil formation, what is the composition of soil, what are the properties of soil, what is the structure of the horizon, what are the different forms of water and their sources in the soil, the properties of water, and the importance of this cycle like hydrological cycle. So in this second unit of BBYCT 133, the unit 2 is ecological factors, soil and water. And here we appreciate what is soil first. So as we would be continuing this topic for another 10 minutes, in my subsequent lectures, we would be talking of this unit and the other units that are there in this course which you are doing, BBY CT 133. And after today's class, we will be continuing again tomorrow with this unit, which I am going to introduce right now and leave it for you to study and understand and put up your queries in the message box to be conveyed to me so that I can solve it as we progress with our discussions. So to continue, what is soil? We say soil is a natural resource formed by weathering, that is breakdown of rocks. And it has been defined as the matrix containing living biomass and dead organic matter with some concentration of air and water. It is a rich source of organic and inorganic materials that support plant life and microscopic communities. There are inorganic materials also present that include mineral elements that are derived from the weathering processes and fragmentation of the parent rock material. So the organic components would include organic waste, dead remains of plants and animals, and their decomposition products. So if we appreciate this abiotic factor soil, then we say that the soil is that natural resource which is so important for the primary producers like plants because it has inorganic and organic components essential for the growth and development. Various models have been proposed to explain the formation of soil. And this process of soil formation can be termed as genesis. So if we are talking about genesis of soil, then it is called as soil genesis, explaining the process of how this layer was formed. It was proposed by Hans Jenny in 1941 and Roy W. Simonson in 1959. According to them, soil formation consists of two steps. Number one, accumulation of the parent material, and two, differentiation into different horizons. Organic matter is added to soils after decay and decomposition of the remains of plants and animals, and the rate of soil formation is regulated by environmental factors. So we have soil formation where there is weathering processes, which is the breakdown of rocks, which can be chemical or physical. There can be changes in temperature that causes cracks. There can be freezing and thawing. There can be chemical weathering brought about by the action of water or activities of organisms that are present in soil. There can be oxidation reduction reactions, various organic acids that are produced by microbes that will assist in the breakdown. So essentially, the weathering of rocks would be physical weathering or there can be chemical weathering. So I repeat, the physical weathering would be by mechanical forces and the chemical would be by activities of organisms that involved in oxidation reduction reactions. Soil formation, another aspect is mineralization and humification after weathering. So the small pieces of rocks or particles that are produced by weathering of rocks would get converted into a homogeneous matrix via the process of mineralization. And here, the plants and animals play an important role. The roots of the plants invade the soil particles, further breaking the particles into fine materials. And the microbes associated with the roots of plants secrete organic acids and humic acids that further assist in breakdown of rock materials to final soil particles. Bacteria, fungi, actinomycetes, and other microorganisms would assist in this decomposition processes, where organic compounds would get converted into inorganic nutrients. Why? Because they are decomposing it, they are breaking it down. And they are breaking the complex matter into simple products such as carbon dioxide, water, and minerals. This process would be now termed as mineralization. And this incompletely decomposed organic material that is left after mineralization forms the humus, which is the dark, homogeneous, amorphous colloidal substance. Humus is very important because it gives a texture to the soil, which provides aeration and helps in retaining the water and the nutrients. And the process, which we said, of soil formation would depend on several factors, such as what is the nature of the parent rock, what is the climate there, the relief or the topography of the area, etc. So if we say what are the factors that would affect this soil formation, which we just mentioned, is consisting of weathering of rocks and the process of mineralization and humification, would involve the nature of the parent material, meaning what kind it is, what is the color, texture, the structure, and the composition as well as permeability of the formed soil would very much depend on the nature of the parent material. And the soil formed, for instance, for example, from limestone, if the parent material is limestone, would possess high levels of soluble bases and would be fertile. So depending upon what is the nature, the final product would be very much dependent. So with these words, we are going to continue our talk tomorrow, where we are going to talk of the ecological factors, and we have introduced the topic of soil, and we are going to see how the composition of soil, the structure, the texture that involves this texture, the types, the profile, and the horizons would be influencing the type of community that is present. What is the soil types that is found in India? What is the biota and fertility factors, etc. Then we would appreciate in our coming lectures the same about the water environment and how these two factors play a very important role. Then we would talk of the other important factors, ecological ones like light and temperature in Unit 3. And then after having discussed in Unit 3 the other factors, we would come to the Block 1, Unit 4, where we'll be talking about adaptations to this water environment by plants, which are the hydrophytes, and to the xeric conditions, which are the xerophytes. With these words, I would conclude my today's lecture and the counseling session for BBYCT 133, where we were dealing with the Block 1. Thank you so much. And in case of your queries, please address it so that in my subsequent lectures, I can discuss your problems. Thank you. Have a good day. And we meet tomorrow again at 11 a.m. for continuing with our BBYCT 133.